One. Welcome, everyone. This is Walt Kasmir, your host of Critical Conversations. I'm inviting you to pull up a chair and interact with us when we're talking about relevant information, relevant topics that affect millions of families: economic literacy, financial literacy, legal literacy, medical literacy, social literacy. All of these issues that we kind of dance around, that is the hub of this whole channel. And today I have the privilege of exposing you to one of the nation's treasures, an author, an advocate, an activist, and a dynamic speaker. And I'll let him explain to you why that is such a miracle in itself. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to none other than Joseph B. Washington.
Walt, how you doing, man?
I am blessed to see you, and I'm so excited that more people get to be exposed to your dynamic personality, your voice, your passion, and your articulate manner in which you shine a light in a dark nation.
Well, brother, I'm excited, and thank you for having me on this incredible platform that you have. And I'm just going to follow your lead, brother.
Well, Joseph, for the people who don't know, after this, they will know. But you are, as I mentioned in the intro, you are a professional speaker.
Yes.
And that is so ironic because as you tell your story, you grew up as an awkward young man with a speech impediment.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So talk to that and then talk to us about your flagship message to the world of Average Breaker. Brother, enlighten us on that.
Yes, sir, man. And again, I'm super excited. So as you know, you and I talked offline. We've been knowing each other for a long time. Even with your wife, man, we go back 35 plus years. But I grew up with a severe speech impediment. And growing up in the Washington, D.C. area and then moving to San Diego, California, you know, when I was younger, Walt, they used to call me the woo-woo boy because I could not speak, man. The only thing that came out of me pretty much was air. And the kids used to call me stupid and dumb and make fun of me and bully me. And I remember one day running into the house and telling my mother, I said, it's true. And she said, what, little boy? I said, I'm stupid and I'm dumb. My mother said, where did you hear that from? I said, the kids. And my mother said something to me that only a mother could say to an 8-year-old son. She said, little boy, sit down. She said, let me tell you something. She said, you're neither stupid or dumb. She said, it's just that your brain and your mouth ain't caught each other. We're going to get them to catch each other. And man, for the next 9 years, we went on this roller coaster ride to teach me how to articulate, how to enunciate. I used to have to read out loud. You know, my mother went to Howard University. She was an English major. She read books all day, every day. And so she had me reading out loud. She had me writing on cue cards. I would have to get books and read books to her. I'd have to use them in a sentence. And it was a struggle for me. And I remember her whispering to me. She said, Joseph, practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes better. And then she said, if you would be willing to participate in your own rescue and not play the victim, your mama's going to help you. And so, brother, we went on this roller coaster ride. And by the time I was a senior in high school in San Diego State University recruited me as a high school senior to be on their college debate team. And I'm traveling the state of California, and I'm debating against kids from UCLA, USC, Cal, Berkeley, Stanford, and I'm whooping them. Because at the age of 11, my mother gave me a dictionary and she told me to learn these words. I remember my mother being in the living room and telling her friend Vion, she said, one day my baby gonna learn how to talk. And she said, Vion, and when he does, he's gonna travel all around the world. And brother, it has been an amazing, amazing journey by the grace of God that I've been able to travel around the world, sharing this incredible message of how you go from average to awesome. How do we let average go? And I decided to break the spirit of average. And then I decided to teach and train others to do the same.
Now, Joseph, did I hear you right? You said you went from having a severe impediment and with no professional help, no speech pathologist, not going to Walter Reed Hospital, you and your educated, anointed mom and your will to improve were able to overcome that within 2 or 3 years?
Well, it happened probably over a 5-year period. Okay, we began to see things change because, you know, back there in the 70s, Walt, there was no linguistic programming. There was nobody there to teach me how to say this, how to enunciate that. My mother would just have me speak out loud. And when I would do that, she said, because I want to hear you. I want you to hear yourself speak, Joseph. And so the more I heard myself speak, the more I realized that the me I see is the me I'll be. And I realized that if I could just continue to do it day in and day out. Yeah. And I became a wannabe etymologist, man. I love the origin of words. And of course, I've always loved reading. And she shared that with me. You're not stupid, Joseph. You get A's and B's. You just can't articulate, but we're going to ratify that. And I tell you, man, my mother did an amazing job. My teachers in the classroom, that's why I love educators, did an amazing job helping me. But there was a will to win on the inside of me, because I knew that if I can unleash this giant that was lying on the inside of me, that one day the world would know who I am, but I'd have to work hard and be willing to participate in my own rescue. And man, that's what we did.
And so that volcano of emerging, developing passion for excellence became the impetus for your new movement, Letting Average Go, or Average Breaker. Joseph, tell us about that.
Right. So originally, the title was Breaking the Spirit of Average. And I was speaking in churches because, as you know, I'm an ordained minister, pastor as well. But I was speaking in churches, but I was also speaking in corporate America. And so I was sharing this message of breaking the spirit of average, which I then soon after changed to Let Average Go. And what I did was I took the word average and I asked myself, I said, Joseph, if you were to go from average to awesome, how would you do that? I love acronyms. So I took the word average and I created these 7 incredible principles that will take you from average to awesome, from awesome to taking action in your life. And if you want me to, I'll go through the 7 real quick if you like.
I'm so glad you did that articulate segue. I most definitely want you to give us the highlights of your whole philosophy. And it's so awesome that you could distill all that down to a memorable, impactful acronym.
Yeah.
So just walk us through the core messages of your acronym, and I'm just going to step back and allow you to do your magic.
I appreciate it. So, first we have to define what is average. And when I'm in front of my audiences, Walt, throughout the country, I ask them, define what is average. And you will hear people say, the middle of the road, mediocrity, same old, doing what everybody else does. I define average as a painkiller that lulls you to sleep while it slowly numbs your senses. Average is the top of the bottom and the bottom of the top. It is the best of the worst and the worst of the best. Because what I realize is that average people don't get noticed. And so how do we go from wasted potential to destiny fulfilled? We take this word average and we go through this roller coaster ride. We go through this maze, this amazing journey of getting to the end. So the letter A, when you look at the word average, the letter A, the first thing that you and I must do is adopt a positive attitude, because it is your attitude that's going to determine your success or your failure. I teach people that if you take the word attitude, ATTITUDE, if you count each letter where it falls numerically in the alphabet, it comes out to exactly 100. So the letter A is the first letter of the alphabet. The letter T is the 20th letter. The next T is the 20th letter. The I is 9, the T is 20, the U is 21, the D is 4, and the E is 5. It comes out to exactly 100. But knowledge comes out to 96. Hard work comes out to 98. And so although you have tremendous knowledge and you're a hard worker, it is your attitude that's going to determine your success or your failure. So you got to adopt a positive attitude. The letter V, you got to value your time. And I teach people all the time, you have to value whose time? Your time. Stop giving your time away to people who you think are more important than you or more valuable than you are. It is your time. And one of the components that I teach is that you got to move opposite of the crowd with your time, because average people follow crowds. Average breakers create them. So when Wendy and I, my beautiful wife and I, go to a movie, we don't go on a Friday night here in Atlanta, Georgia at 8 o'clock at night when there's thousands of people. We go on a Tuesday afternoon around 1 o'clock when there's 4 or 5 people in the theater, and we pretty much got it all to ourselves. Why? Because we move opposite of the crowd with our time. So I adopt a positive attitude. I value my time. The letter E in the word average is to enlist the help of a mentor. You need somebody that's going to stretch you and not shrink you. Somebody that's going to make you better and not make you bitter. But you need somebody who's going to have the emotional integrity to be honest with you and say, if you keep doing what you keep doing, you're going to keep getting what you keep getting. So you need mentors that are going to stretch you, because if you don't get the right mentors to stretch you, you're going to end up on a stretcher with the ambulance coming to get you to take you to the hospital because you're all stressed out. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. And then the letter R is read daily. Read daily, read daily, because readers are leaders. I believe it was Emerson who said that every time I learn something new, my mind stretches and it never returns back to its original proportion. My brain never goes back to its original proportion, because the more I put in, the more I can give out. But you got to read daily. And I teach young people this all the time, because most young people are not stupid and dumb. They're just not strong readers. And when they become strong readers, they can do math and science. They can do history and language arts and all that. So we've got to get back to that old fashioned way of reading. No more audiobooks, and nothing wrong with audiobooks, but we've got to get back to reading if we're going to let average go. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. We read daily. The next A in the word average is anticipate opposition, because the dream killers are coming. You got to realize that they're coming. Everybody don't want to see you do well. And that's why you got to get around people that when they see you coming, man, they value you. You got to stop being around people who just tolerate you, and get around people who going to celebrate you. But you've got to anticipate opposition. And opposition is good, because it makes us, it builds us, it develops us, it develops our character, and makes us into who we truly are. Because if you never have any opposition, you'll really never know who you are. So we got to anticipate that opposition. And I teach about that in my book, how we begin to counteract that. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. We read daily. We anticipate opposition. And then the letter G is guard your goals. I believe it was Dr. Benjamin E. Mays who said, it must be born into the mind of a man that the tragedy in life is not that you not reach your goals. The tragedy in life is that you have no goals to reach. And so we've got to talk about goal setting. How do we reach goals? And I teach in my course that you've got to have written goals, because a short pencil is better than a long memory. And then you've got to have goals that are visual, because the me I see is the me I'll be. Right. And that when you write your goals, always write your goals in quicksand, not in concrete. Why? Because you may have to make some mid-course adjustments with your goals. You may have to, wait another semester before you graduate, or, because there's never a perfect time for anything to happen. You may need a little bit more time. So if you write it in quicksand, you can sort of wiggle it around. But if you write it in concrete and you say this is that, and then it doesn't happen, then you give up altogether. But we've got to learn the importance of setting goals, setting the right goals, the whole SMART formula, goals that are specific, goals that are real to you. You got to set goals that are purposeful, that are in line with your character and who you are. So we've got to guard our goals. And then finally, after we adopt a positive attitude, after we value our time, after we enlist the help of a mentor, after we read daily, after we anticipate opposition, after we guard our goals, the last letter is the letter E of the word average, and that is we must empower our belief system. What do you believe about yourself? You still believe in the lies that were told to you years ago, that you ain't good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not tall enough, whatever the case may be, you're not educated enough? You got to empower your belief system. When I was little, I went to the circus. And when I went to the circus, my mother had taken me and my brother, and the trainer had come out with the baby elephant, and the baby elephant did tricks and all this. But I noticed that the trainer took the elephant in back of the tent and tied the elephant's foot to a stake with a chain on it, and the elephant stayed right there. Well, 20 years later, I went back to that same circus, and that elephant was as big as the tent now. It's a full-grown elephant. The elephant came out, Walt, they started doing tricks, doing what it did before, and that same trainer took that elephant to the back of the tent and tied his foot to a stake. I excused myself from my friends that I was with. I went into the back and I asked the elephant, I said, Mr. Elephant, do you mind if I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, why are you in the same place today that you were 20 years ago? You're still tied to this stake. And here's what he said to me, Walt. He said, 20 years ago, I was held captive by force. But today I'm held captive by my belief system. You see, 20 years ago when I was little, there were people who were bigger than me that could keep me in one position, but I've grown to understand that this one place is where I belong. So now there's a fully grown elephant, and I can tear this this place apart. I have the power and the strength to do it. My belief system tells me to stay in my place. And so we've got to empower our belief system. You got to teach people to start believing in themselves, start seeing the magic that lies within them, start understanding that God has divinely made them with their own DNA, their own structure. And when we can make the decision to let average go, to leave that place of wasted potential and begin to fulfill our destiny, then that's the day that we begin to live. We begin to live when we say to average that our relationship is over. I tell people all the time, send average their divorce papers, man. Let it go. Let that relationship go. And when we do that, Walt, it begins to make a difference, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you articulate so much in such a concise presentation. It's almost like drinking from a fire hydrant. But if we could go back to 2 or 3 things that you said.
Sure.
Before I jump into that, though, so I heard you say that you've written a book.
Yes.
You have a course and
Yes.
you teach. So the teaching, is that in group settings, Zoom, or do you have one-on-one teaching services?
So I don't do one-on-one coaching. I'm more of a keynote speaker. And then I do trainings where you have multiple of people in there, 20, 30, 40. I've had 400 in there. So the book I've written is called Let Average Go. And of course, we got the workbook now. And so I've been doing, trainings on Zoom because of COVID, right?
Yeah, sure.
But also my workbook is designed for an individual that they can work it by themselves. Mm-hmm. So you order the book, you order the workbook, you could actually go through it yourself. But when I train and I teach on it, of course, it's more in depth. We have more questions that we ask. It's more role playing. And so mine's is geared toward a group setting where everybody can sort of just feed off of each other.
Okay, fair enough. And you have to be productive. A renowned resource like yourself, you have to disseminate that to as many people as efficiently as possible. I certainly understand that. And so that's perfect. I mean, you have to be able to present your clarion call to the people from the loudest voice. Now, I did have 3 questions. Now, you mentioned empowering your belief system. Mm-hmm. And this kind of reminds me of sermons that are so awesome, but they're kind of like at a bird's eye view to where you can't really put your hands on it come Monday.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of someone who may not have direct access to a coach? I mean, that's what most of our young people are exposed to the most, are athletic coaches.
Yeah.
If they are not an athlete, who are the potential resources that could become these mentors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love also what you said about, you can share messages. So you have a lot of quote unquote motivational speakers out there who really are speaking on messages that are really not core to them. Like they just found a subject that they know that people want to hear. And so they sort of mastered this subject, but it's not personal to them, right? And so there's a bunch of rah that's attached to it. So come Monday, I can't use the rah. I'm talking to you about average because I've been average. I'm talking to you about letting average go because I now wake up when I finish sleeping. I've been able to travel around the world. I spoke at the White House under the Obama administration in 2010. I've been to Africa. I've been to Israel, Trinidad, Tobago, the Bahamas, Switzerland. The list goes on and on and on. So I've been average, and I know what it's like to get from average to awesome. And so when you talk about, one's belief system or how do they begin to empower that, and you may not have a personal coach, man, you got YouTube, you got books that you can read, you got other resources, magazines, other resources that you can chime in on. You got a phone, so you can call some people that you see that are doing what you want to do, because most people love talking about themselves and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? I just want to know, yada, yada, yada. So there's ways of being stretched without having a personal mentor that you need, because we have so many ways now, unlike we didn't have these many ways, Walt, when you and I were growing up. Right? We didn't have all the channels, the YouTubes, the platforms and all that. So there's so many platforms now that people can reach out to. I mean, I still listen to Earl Nightingale. I'll go to YouTube and pull down Earl Nightingale, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, or How to Make the Great Great. These are guys that I can't get to personally. Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale are gone, but they've left us a treasure of knowledge and audio that we can go and glean from every single day. Because I'm telling you, the more you do it, amazing things begin to happen. So I find them in that, that capacity.
And I love that you mentioned SMART goals. Some of the people may not really understand that, but especially in the context of you saying, even if you don't have direct access to a mentor, to an uncle, to a father, to a coach, you can reach this content.
That's right.
The internet it has proliferated to where we almost don't have an excuse not to find good content, but be it to have the drive and the ability to decipher this information and take some direct, simple instructions like SMART goals, and actually implement them in our lives and make a life-changing new habit.
Yeah.
Just enlighten us on SMART goals and make it plain so that people can truly come away from this having something that they can start doing tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So when you think about SMART goals, you think about the S, I think is specific. The M is measurable. The A, I don't know them all the way, but I know it's, you figuring out the time, the environment, I believe is one of them. I believe
the A is achievable.
Achievable, right? So you got, you got specific, you got measurable, you got achievable. So SMART, and then the T is, time, timelessness, right? The timetable, putting times next to your goals, like dates and times next to your goals. And I just think that if one wants it bad enough, Walt, they can get it, man. They can go find it. But you got to want it bad enough. You got to want to go get it. And when you want to go get it, it can be found, period, point blank, period.
All right, Joseph, I love being crystal clear. So give me an example, a short example of how you use the SMART in general, or just one of those, and how you actually did this and went from an awkward young man with a severe speech impediment to a world-renowned, highly sought-after speaker.
Yeah. So for me, it was the time factor of it, right? Like, so one of the things that I was doing wrong, was I was writing down all of these goals. Like I would have like 20 goals for the day, right? And I'd write them down because I thought the more I wrote, that meant like the deeper I was and the smarter I was, and that I was really a go-getter. But I was writing down all these goals, not achieving most of them. And so what I learned to do was take 4 or 5 goals I wanted to achieve and then put timetables next to them, right? Or if I had a monthly goals, I would have 4 or 5 monthly goals I wanted to achieve, and then I would put timetables next to them. So whatever the goal was, I put a time when I wanted to complete it, and that began to make it a lot easier for me. And I would always do the ones I didn't like the most first, nice. And then at the end, so the ones left over were the ones I really enjoyed, right? So I would get the ones I really didn't like out the way first. Like I don't like answering emails. I don't like sending text messages. I'm not a phone person. So I would get those out the way first. And then my other ones that I really enjoy, like when I'm reading a book, right? So people ask me all the time about read daily, so how is it that I can read a book in a certain amount of time? Count the number of pages that it is, divide it by 30, and that'll tell you how many pages that you need to read a day if you want to read a book in a specific amount of time. And so there are ways of getting around that. But for me, it was really implementing the time factor, because I never had times next to it. I would just say, I'm going to do this. And then about the time I looked at them, I'm like, man, I can't do all that. And so I just had to switch it up, few goals, put times next to them. And then my achievement rate, man, just went high. So now I know how much is in me. I know how much energy I have to get stuff done. And I'm able to achieve more. It may be less goals, but I'm achieving more with less time, but I build it all in. So that's what's been good for me.
So you're being effective and efficient.
Effective and efficient versus just, I'm out there, I'll get a couple of these done. So that was important to me, because somebody told me just, write a bunch of goals. And I just found out, no. And then write goals that are specific to you. Like I don't need to write a goal that I'm going to be the president of the United States of America. Like that's not a realistic goal, right? Like it's not realistic, right? So I'm writing goals that are realistic. I'm writing goals that are measurable. I'm measuring my goals, right? So remember, I talked about the quicksand versus the concrete.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
I'm measuring it as I go. And I'm seeing, how close am I to my finish line?
Mm-hmm.
I'm measuring it now. How much more time do I need to put in? Because it may mean that I need to fall back from a specific goal and just get back on this goal so I can get that one over the finish line, and then go back to another goal. So there's no right or wrong order. The thing is, you just want to get it done. You said it best: effective and efficient.
And I like that you're actually schooling us on Six Sigma without using all the fancy inflated terminology and all that. I'm not a corporate person, but it's been well repeated that what gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
So I am a proponent of, no matter what your station of life is, no matter where you are on that train of your life, whether you're getting started or toward the middle or coming to a close,
mm-hmm.
You have to treat your life as though you are the CEO of a major corporation or the king of a kingdom. And using these type of principles are what makes kings royal mindset.
Yeah.
And so if we take that analogy of being the CEO of our own life,
right,
and measuring the goals and looking back and say, okay, I really didn't achieve that the way I wanted to. I have to make some adjustments. Mm-hmm. Those are the same things that major corporations are doing. They just pay a lot of employees to get Six Sigma credentials with all, I call them the alphabet gang, man. They have MBA, PhD,
right.
3-4 certificates, and you're giving them that for free right now and breaking it down and making it plain and putting it into actionable steps.
And one of the things that I tell people too, Walt, is that if you can't do it simple enough, then it should not be done.
I like that.
Whatever's going to be done great has to be done simple. See, one of the challenges that we face in life is this. We often say to our life just ends so soon. And it's not that life ends so soon. It's just that you wait so long to get started. You see, because somebody quoted that, some men see things as they are and say, why? You and I must now dream of things that never were and say, why not me? Why not us? It's time to make a shift. And I'm learning that even now through this whole message of Let Average Go, I'm shifting even in terms of how I say a thing. We always say this, Walt, I have to do this. I have to do that. I've got to do this. I have to do this. So I'm listening to one of the speakers. His name is Dalatoro McNeil. And he was talking about that every time we say I have to, that evokes it screams within our nervous system, obligation and responsibility. But if you just tweak that a little bit and say, not that I have to, but I get to. Get to pick up my kids because this is going to be a great opportunity for me to spend some quality time for them. I get to take my wife to the grocery shopping. I get to go to grocery shopping with my wife because this gives me quality time with her. So we got to switch from I have to, which screams responsibility and obligation, to now I get to, which now screams opportunity. It's just making that shift, brother.
And that is your specialty, empowering people to make that shift from being average to being mundane.
Yeah.
And forgive me if I'm a little sarcastic here, but sometimes when I look at society and I think of how the elite are enjoying all the privileges, and it's like 5 to 1% of the people are enjoying all the wealth, and 95% of the people are what I call miserable masses.
Yes.
They're educated just enough to be mindless consumers.
Yeah, man.
Unless they have been blessed enough to have somebody speaking with a passionate voice and articulating some truth into their life, like you have been doing across this country. They just remain on that paradigm.
And the real pandemic in life is fiscal illiteracy.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the real pandemic.
You have to say that. You have to say that again for the people. They might have been dozing off.
The real pandemic in life is fiscal illiteracy.
Oh,
You see, you got 5% of the world controlling 95% of all the wealth. Why is that? Because they are literate in terms of how finances work. As a people, especially African American people, we're such consumers, man. We consume. There was a statistic done that African Americans, I believe it was in 2009, spent like $6 million on barbecue potato chips, right? I mean, it's just the craziness, buying these shoes that are so expensive. And I tell these parents all the time, why don't you take the shoes back that you paid all that money for? Get your money back and go get your child some tutorial. Go get your child some learning, because that's really where it's at. But we've got to learn fiscal literacy in terms of how we begin to make our money work for us. You and I talked about this before we got on air. Giving your money a job and have it go to work. Because I told you, I ain't worked in 20 years. I ain't punched the clock in 20 years. I wake up whenever I finish sleeping. So whenever I get done sleeping is when I get up, Walt. Because I designed my life in order for it to work like that. Because I work in corporate America. I work the job. Nothing wrong with that, because you can take the 9 to 5 that you work and stretch that money, make it work. But you got to have some other stuff in place. But just me and corporate America, man, just wasn't working, because I could only go but so high.
Right.
So I said, I'm gonna do what the 5% do.
Right.
I'm gonna get on the side of not just owning my own business, but being an investor as well. If it's real estate, if it's in the crypto market, whatever it is, we've got to learn how to begin to take some chances on ourselves, right? We got to be willing to put ourselves first. And that's what my wife and I have done, man. We just become fiscal literate, and it's just been an amazing, amazing journey.
Now, Joseph, please dispel the myth that to become rich with financial instruments, investments, etc., requires us to be a genius or a nerd, as the young people say. Shed some light on that for me, please.
Brother, listen, man, if that was the case, you look at the wealthiest people in the world, most of them don't even have a college degree, okay? They don't own a college degree. What they own and what they've been able to acquire is they have become master mimickers. They're able to mimic the folks that are in that 5% club. And so you don't have to, listen, if you can read and comprehend, and like you said, get on the internet and start researching, how do I gain wealth, reading the right books, getting in the right atmosphere, man, I'm telling you, it is amazing. And then God has a grace on the lives of those individuals who are seeking more. The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things shall be added unto you. So I've learned to seek God's kingdom, and then God opens up the floodgates. But I'm learning what I've learned because I'm able to read, and I'm able to listen, and then I'm able to get around the right people, Walt. That's important. Who are your associates? You got to avoid the company of unenthusiastic people. The worst people in your life are those who whine and complain, who murmur. You got to get around stretchers, as we said earlier. You got to get around the William Thompsons of the world who are in that 5% and say, man, how do you do what you do? Because I tell people this, and I think it was Albert Einstein who said it. If you see a man that's well educated, ask him, what books are you reading? Who are your companions? Who are the people that you're around? So no, you don't need an education. You don't need a college degree or education. Nothing wrong with those things. You and I, we've been there, done that. But to be in that 5% of wealth, you got to get around the 5% of wealth people, either in person or the knowledge that they have out there, man. And I'm telling you, it's there.
Joseph, I'm so glad that you circled back around to the importance of reading.
Yes.
Now we wouldn't be having critical conversations if I didn't just throw some people under the bus and say, some of us, a lot of us, too many of us don't think reading is good, don't think it's cool, or don't want to spend time doing boring things like that. Shed some light on the importance of reading and what you just said, how that distinguishes someone who reads relevant information that's going to help them compared to someone who's just consuming with reckless abandon.
Yeah. That reading puts you in front of certain conversations. You can tell when you've got a person who's well read. because they can conversate with you well, they articulate well, they enunciate well. I mentioned earlier that most of our kids aren't stupid or dumb. Well, they're just not strong readers. I tell people all the time, you've got to become a strong reader. You've got to read because readers are leaders. And I told you what Emerson said, when you learn something new, your mind stretches. It never returns back to its original proportion. And it's going to be the difference, perhaps, not in all cases, but it's going to be the difference between, do you receive a check or are you signing for a check? You understand what I'm saying? Are you receiving a check? Are you the one who's signing the check? Because you've got folks that are working for you. You got folks that are in your sphere of influence. That's what reading has done. Reading has put me in places that I promise you, had I not been an avid reader, I would not have been able to intellectually be in some of the seminars and places that I've taught at. I remember being here in Georgia, being up at I think it was Southern University or South Georgia, and I'm the keynote speaker for medical doctors. I'm not a medical doctor, man.
Right.
Nowhere am I a medical doctor. But I was able to start reading up on the doctors that were going to be attending, learning a little bit about their about the profession that they're in, and I was able to learn enough to where we could have a conversation. And these guys are like, "Well, where'd you go to?" I didn't go to med school. I just took the time to read about what it is that you guys do, and then I wove in. I did a message called "I want my crayons back," and I'm not saying please. Because for many of us, Walt, we have lost our creativity, brother. We have lost our creativity and our imaginations have been dulled down. And this is a season for us not only to let average go, but this is a season for us to go back and get our crayons. Because you remember when we was little, from first grade to sixth grade, man, our imagination and creativity was at its highest.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right.
We got in middle school and high school. We got around those crayon stealers. And our creativity and our imagination started to go down. And so I'm telling people, go get your crayons, man. Create a success plan. Run as fast as you can to the front of the line. Avoid the company of unenthusiastic people. Go help other people get their crayons back. Never negotiate your negotiables. And we just go on and on and on because this is what reading has been able to do for me. People think, well, God, this guy is smart. No, I outread you. When I went to Clorox, brother, and I did a seminar for Clorox. When you go into the main office of Clorox, in the floor, they have their 6 principles of Clorox.
Okay.
So I read them. And so here I am sharing these 6 principles of Clorox. And the people that are working for Clorox ask me, does he work for Clorox? I just read your principles. They're on the floor, man, as you walk in. I took the time to read it. So reading takes you to another place. And it lets people know that you're serious about academia, and it's not always academia from sitting in the classroom, but it's an academia from being in the classroom of knowledge and understanding. The library is the emptiest place in the world, man. And I'm telling you, that's the place that needs to be filled.
Now, Joseph, I'm glad you went back to reading, and we could go on. I could sit here and let's talk to you for hours, but we have to make it palatable for the people.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're going to wrap up on that point.
Okay.
But so can you give us just a couple examples of some of the things that you have read that have been deal break changers for you?
Sure. Well, and again, and I hope it's okay, but my Bible reading time. I tell people all the time, there's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. There's 31 days in a month. If you read a proverb a day, you can't help but have wisdom. You're going to have wisdom. You read a proverb every day, you're going to have wisdom. But I'm reading books, like I said, Think and Grow Rich, Nightingale. I'm reading, right now, I'm reading the 1619 Project. I'm learning as much as I can, right? I'm reading, books on Tony Evans and other people, Mark Batterson, Chasing the Lion. So I have a plethora of books that I'm reading that is literally changing my life. And I read various sections of books. I read, social books. I read fiction, nonfiction. I read whatever I want to read in order to really begin to expand my knowledge and expand my mind. And so that I'm open to other things. I just don't want to be one-sided. I want to be open. I want to be well-rounded. So I try to keep my reading as well-rounded as I can. But I read every single day, brother. Every day I'm taking 30 minutes a day and I'm reading something. Yeah.
Now, And I hear you saying that it's not just about being a voracious and strategic reader, but actually taking that information and taking action and being consistent. And that's what I hear you describing as real true wisdom.
Yeah, because we can read and say I read, like people say, well, I read the Bible in a year, but how much did you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I take my books in chunks.
Okay.
And then when I read, I apply it. Right. So whatever I read, I go and apply it.
Okay.
Because I'd rather take my time reading slowly, getting it, and then make an application to that reading. So then now I put it into action. I'm just not a seer, but I'm not a doer.
Okay.
Of the word that I'm projecting. So I'm not a big advocate in rushing through books and doing all that. Take your time through it. Enjoy it. Get your books that you enjoy. When my boys were little, they didn't like reading, but they loved sports. So I had them reading the ESPN magazine.
Okay.
They would read it. And that was one of the things how I got them to loving reading, because I gave them something that they love, that they love to read. So I tell people all the time, the best way to get started reading, find something that you love reading. Right.
Okay. And you want people to read.
Yeah.
And just so happens you are the author of a book. Tell the people about the book and where they can find it and get more of your jewels.
Yeah. So the book is called Let Average Go. Of course, they can get it directly through me. I didn't put it on Amazon or do any of that because pre-COVID, man, I was speaking, 3-4 times a week, selling books in the back and whatnot. So if you want a copy of Let Average Go, you can just email me at joseph@letaverago.com. And I'll send you the information. You cash at me. We'll get a book out to you, and we'll make it very easy for you. I got a brand new website that's going to be coming up. So because it's been parked for a while, and so we're going to be adding some stuff to it. But my thing, man, is getting in front of people and sharing this message and being a product of the product. See, my
like to hear that.
Power, my strength is that I'm a product of the I'm a product of the product. Right, because people know me when they're on Facebook. Ain't that dude that couldn't talk? Ain't that the woo woo boy? Man, that dude couldn't even talk, man. Like I'm grown now, and they're like, bro, I remember when you couldn't even talk, and you speaking like, man, this is crazy. And so I'm telling people that if you're ready to leave that place of average, it's not going to happen overnight. My book is a short book. It's about 120 pages, very easy to read. Because I'm not going to read a 300-page book. I'd have to tell you, I'd have to ask you, Walt, what does my book say, man? Because I'm not going to read all that. So I made the chapters very user-friendly. Okay. They got a little workbook at the end of each chapter where you can answer these questions. And I've had as young as 6-year-olds read it. But I think the biggest compliment I get is when I hear men tell me, bro, I'm reading your book for the second time. Men, we don't do a lot of reading, but these guys like, bro, I'm on your book for the second time. In fact, I got to get another one because my wife keep taking my book. So it's a great read, and not just because I wrote it, but I'm able to go more in depth of each one of those principles, tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to go from average to awesome. People ask me, well, how did you get to the White House? Attitude. I did not know President Obama, but there was a school in Washington, D.C. that I had been working with for free, not charging them because they couldn't pay me. So they were on my to-do list just to be a blessing to them. They had the lowest testing scores in the District of Columbia. Barack Obama gets into the presidency in 2008. Drew Elementary now has the highest testing scores in 2010. The White House invites them to the White House for their 5th grade graduation class, and they call me to be the keynote speaker for the 5th grade graduation class. So I'm right there where President Obama is. Of course, there's a rope off. You got Michelle, Queen Latifah was there. The little boy Kanye West was there. But I'm right there. And in fact, you can go to YouTube, and I did a video on the White House lawn for all my haters, and just say, guys, I'm here. I'm right behind the White House. So I love it. Because somebody liked me, because I had a great attitude. Because anybody would have took that gig, man. So of course, I'm passionate about these 7 principles. I know that these 7 principles work, and I just tell people work the principles, and the principles will work for you.
So if you could give us some parting words of wisdom, and of course, everything that Mr. Washington mentioned, his links to his books, his website, how you can book him to speak, come to your conferences, etc., will be in the description of the videos and the podcast. Brother, can you close us out with some parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, what I want to say to your audience is this, is that it's never too late. And that today is the day that you make the decision to let average go. Today is the day that you decide to go from average to awesome to taking action. You know, this is your life and this is your future. And one day we're going to get old and we're not going to be able to move the same way we move now and do the things that we do now. But I want you to take advantage of the time that you have now. Carpe diem, seize the day. Make this work for you. You deserve it. I want you to enjoy your life. But if you're going to live your best life and if you're going to live the life that you deserve, you've got to make a decision to let average go. And maybe, you know, all of those 7 principles, you may say, you know, Joe, man, there's 3 of these principles I'm great at. These other 4, man, a little questionable. So in those 7 principles that I mentioned, take the one that you really need to work on. If it's your attitude, maybe you need to handle your time more wisely. Maybe you need the right mentors. I don't know what it is, but nothing is going to happen until you make it happen. And I want to say this as I part. The man who said it could not be done should stop bothering the man who's already doing it. Walt, you are doing it, brother. And I thank you for this opportunity to share something I'm so passionate about, and that is to let average go. But I'm telling you, when they make the decision, because to decide is not to decide, when you make the decision to let average go, it will absolutely happen in a person's life. It's up to them. 2022, let's make a difference, man.
Well, I am so elated and honored that you would come on our show, drop some gems, drop those 7 principles on us. Again, I'm Walt Kasmir, having critical conversations. I only bring you the best and the brightest. So until next time, be blessed and know that where there's hope, there's healing.